Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of Just Ask. My name is Rich, my pronouns are he, him, and I'm the founder of the DSC, and today we're joined by the wonderful Annabelle, and I'll pass it over to you to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Annabelle, and I'm an anti-racism, social justice and diversity and inclusion educator and activist.
Wonderful.
I'm also a black woman.
I think that's perfect. We're literally going to launch into that as well, about we've gone over like what questions we could ask today, but there's so many different things we want to talk about, and actually the thing we wanted to start, what we came round to, was about why our mums don't really get what we do when you do D&I. And I thought, do you want to just fire away about where you're from and how you got to where you are now?
Definitely.
And your mum, obviously.
So I'm a second generation Black British Nigerian, and my mum works in accounting. My sister's a lawyer. I come from a long line of lawyers, and I study law and politics at university. And obviously I do D&I work, and explaining that to my mum has been very difficult, I think. I think my mum sort of sees it as a fashion trend, and she sees it as something just sort of that young Annabelle is interested in right now, and when she's older she'll settle down into a more serious role. And I think part of it comes from culture. I think I come from a culture where there's 5 professions that you choose from, and that's the only choice that you have. So doing something which is out of the norm always going to be a point of contention. But I wouldn't say she's not supportive. I'd say she's very, very supportive, but she just doesn't really understand that it's a living and breathing profession.
Yeah, my mum does not get it at all. My brother's a doctor, and he's obviously got the profession. She's goes around to everyone, my brother's a doctor, he does this, it's very easy for her to digest. And she sort of says to me, but Rich, what do you do? I say you do the adverts. I'm like, well, I don't, you have to really explain it. But I think what's interesting about our mums not getting it is a lot of the work that we do at the DSC and that you do as well is talking to brands, talking to businesses, and they're of the same age group, a lot of the people who run those companies. So if our mums don't really know, that's probably how we can judge what we're going to expect. We walk into these large brands and corporations. Is they're all a bit like, D&I, is this a trend? Is the thing, do you find that a lot when you go into sort of businesses?
100%. I think a lot of the time when I'm leading workshops or presentations, I read it to my mum and I'm like, do you understand this? And she's just like, what does inclusion mean? And I'm like, okay, let's reel it right back. We can start from the beginning. So yeah, I think definitely we're working with a foundational level of maybe a foundational lack of knowledge, which needs to be built upon, and that's when we start building the real change.
If you can explain it to your mum and she gets it, that's probably the way that you have to explain it to businesses.
Definitely.
We're a bit further ahead, I think, online than we are offline. What are your favourite things about kind of working on TikTok, and what are the things that kind of grind your gears?
I love TikTok because I think my biggest love for TikTok comes from the fact that lived experience and Indigenous knowledge is focused. It's the people who live and breathe these inequities and inequalities. It's the people who are involved on the ground. Those are the people who are educating. Those are the people who are sharing their stories. So I think you go from a world where academic knowledge is the most respected form of knowledge to something like social media, where it's okay, well, listen to what happened to me, and I'm going to tell you how this affects me and how this is a massive systemic issue. And then people listen, and people really become passionate about that, and their education turns into activism, it turns into protest. That's why I love TikTok, and that's equally why I love educating on TikTok. But I think it is hard because when you begin being known for one of the people that spread those Indigenous forms of knowledge and educate people based on love and liberation, there's an expectation that you need to be on it for everything. And I think maybe it's an over-reliance on one specific person to educate you on everything. But, in some of my comments, it's difficult to read when people are just okay, well, you're speaking about Black Lives Matter, or you're speaking about feminist issues, but you're not speaking about other issues happening in different sides of the world. Take Iran, for example. And it was really difficult because not everything is my place, because I don't have that Indigenous knowledge. So all I can do is direct you to the people who are educating and advocating. But B, I can't do everything. And this whole idea that if you're not perfect, you're doing something wrong is just really difficult to grapple with. And I think it's difficult to grapple with on an individual level, but also as an educator, it makes me feel like, how am I justified to educate you if I haven't got everything correct? So, yeah.
My next question is, let's talk about body image and dream girls, the two subjects that you picked and you're top of your list.
Definitely. I think, first of all, Dreamgirls is my favourite musical. I love musical theatre. I was studying, like, professionally training musical theatre from the age of 11 to 18.
Yeah.
So right up until I was about to go to university, I wanted to go in the West End and do that for the rest of my life.
Nice.
And I think with body image, a lot of people sort of talk to me about sociological issues, whether it be class or it be race or it be gender, but not I've never actually been asked about, you know, what is it like not being straight sized, or what is it like existing in the body that I'm existing in. And I think it's really important to talk about, and it's really just undervalued and unrecognized, because we can talk about body positivity and like viewing yourself in a way that you can love yourself, but we don't talk about how if you exist in a different body, your material conditions are different to someone who exists in a body which is valued.
So what is it like? You never going to ask that, because you said I never got asked that, so I have to ask that.
I think it's a journey to definitely love yourself. I think a lot of people, when they go through puberty or they grow up, they're like, okay, well, I like this about me and I like that about me. And being around people that begin to reclaim their identity and realize that, you know, they're attractive and they're lovely and all of that kind of stuff, you then start to compare yourself, and then you pick things apart from yourself. And coming from like a religious background, there's this whole idea of like modesty, or this whole idea that like fashion has a size. So if you are not that size, fashion doesn't apply to you. And if you are not that size, things aren't accessible to you and things aren't open to you. I think I read a study a couple of weeks ago talking about how with women, their weight affects the roles that their weight affects the how they get to see, like how likely they are to get to like C-suite level.
Oh really?
Yeah. Now that's something that came out like I think it came out end of 2022, and no one really talks about that.
No.
And then let's not even talk about women and their bodies, but let's add things. Let's talk about, you know, what about women, their body and their race? Let's talk about women, their body, what if they're trans? All of that kind of stuff. And it's just like, the conversation around body positivity is definitely around, okay, well, this brand is doing sizes up to this, and this we're talking about, okay, well, don't shop from here because they only use straight size models. But at the same time, it's like, let's talk about how, you know, if you're not straight size, it's more difficult for you to get promoted. It's more difficult for you to be seen as a professional in a working environment. It's difficult for you to find those professional clothes which you have to wear to interviews and all of that kind of stuff. And I think these day-to-day things are just accepted as normal, and that's just what you have to do. You either just lose weight, or you get surgery, or you have to change yourself. But it's like, it's important, and it's not just about positivity, but it's about justice as well. When we're fighting for a bigger purpose, there's this whole idea that there is no room for mistakes. It's either you do things right or you fail, or you get cancelled. But it's the thing that we're still navigating our way through life. I think TikTok specifically is young people. It's mostly Gen Z. And if we're telling them that, you know, if you don't know, you have to get to know. And if you haven't got to know, there's something wrong with you. And if, you know, you can't ask questions, because if you ask questions, people could get offended by that and people could do that. I think the key of like my space is come and ask those questions. Come and be vulnerable. Come and offload on me because I'm inviting you. I don't do it onto another person. Don't do it without permission, and don't put your baggage onto someone who was already fighting their own demons, if you get what I mean. And I think even with my like EDI work, progression is definitely the way forward. All of this, you know, revolutionary things we're talking about, and whether it's abolition or it's like different forms of equity and all of that kind of stuff, we can't do that without progression. You have to get to a point where everybody will be on the same page and there will be a consensus, so you can put those resources in and all of that kind of stuff. And I truly believe that the most crucial work is the middle work, and that's the everyday when you go to work. Yes, we haven't achieved, you know, complete racial equality, for example, but what I can do is make sure that, you know, when a black student walks into an organisation, they're not just called the black student, they're called by their name. And that's something really simple, but that's progression, which can push things forward.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think that's everything. We're trying to get it in a short space of time, so people aren't watching for ages, but it's been so wonderful to talk to you, and thank you so much for sharing about sort of some of your personal experiences and your professional experiences and all of that. Do you have any final things to say, or?
Oh, nothing. Thank you for having me, and
That's
I really
right.
love your work, everything.
Oh, thank you very much.
For having me.
Thank you very much. Well, bye.